It was Thanksgiving evening, and I was driving to my aunt's house in Shenandoah, Virginia. The roads were quiet. Most people already at their destinations, enjoying the holiday. I was running late, having been held up in work. The sun had already set, casting long shadows across the road. Shenandoah was known for its picturesque landscapes, but at night, the dense forests and winding roads took on a more ominous feel. I was familiar with the area, having spent many holidays there. But something felt different that night. Maybe it was the way the trees seemed to lean in towards the road, or how the darkness felt more suffocating than usual. As I drove, I noticed a figure on the side of the road. It was a woman, looking distressed, waving her arms for help. Being a small town where everyone knew each other, I thought it might be someone I knew, or at least someone my family knew. So I pulled over. She was young, probably in her early 20s, and shivering in the cold. She told me her car had broken down, and her phone was dead. She needed a lift to the nearest town. Something about her made uneasy, but I chalked it up to the general eeriness of the night and agreed to help her. As we drove, she was oddly quiet. I tried to make conversation, asking if she was from around here, but she only gave short, non-committal answers. I noticed that she kept glancing at the back seat, her eyes darting around nervously. We were about halfway to town when I saw it. A figure in my rearview mirror, crouched down on the back seat. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't checked the back seat when I let in the woman, and a mistake that I was now regretting. Panic set in, but I tried to keep my composure. I didn't let on that I had seen the figure. Instead, I casually mentioned that I needed to stop for gas, thinking I could get away at the station. But as I pulled into the gas station, the woman suddenly lunged at me, a sharp object glinting in her hand. It all happened so fast, I managed to fend her off, pushing her out of the car and locking the doors. I looked back, and the figure in the back seat was gone. I didn't wait around to see where he went. I sped off, heart pounding, and didn't stop until I reached my aunt's house. I called the police, and they later told me that they found the woman and her accomplice. They were drifters, known to the local authorities, and had been using the broken-down car story to rob unsuspecting drivers. That Thanksgiving, I was grateful for more than just family and food. I was grateful to be alive. The incident left me shaken, and I never again ignored the feeling of unease that sometimes creeps in during the late-night drives. It was a stark reminder that danger can appear when least expected, even on a day as wholesome as Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving, and I was spending it alone in my small apartment in Roanoke, Virginia. My family lived across the country, and with my tight budget, traveling home wasn't an option. I didn't find much. I had planned a quiet evening with a turkey sandwich and some old movies. The day was uneventful until late afternoon, when I heard a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I cautiously peered through the peephole. Standing outside was a man, probably in his 50s, dressed in a worn-out coat and a beanie, holding a small, tattered bag. I opened the door a crack. "Can I help you?" He smiled weakly. "Sorry to bother you. My car broke down a few blocks away, and my phone's dead. Could I use your phone to call for a tow?" Something about him seemed off, but it was Thanksgiving, and I felt bad for the guy, so I let him in, pointing him to the phone in the living room while I returned to the kitchen. I heard him talking, his voice low and muffled. A few minutes later, he hung up and thanked me, saying the tow truck would be there in about an hour. He asked if he could wait inside, as it was cold outside. Reluctantly, I agreed. We sat in awkward silence for a while. I offered him a sandwich, which he accepted gratefully. As we ate, he started talking about how his life had fallen on hard times and how he was trying to get back to his daughter's house for Thanksgiving. I started to relax, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, things took a turn. He started asking personal questions: where I worked, if I lived alone, how often I had visitors. I answered vaguely, my earlier unease returning. Then, out of nowhere, he stood up and walked towards the kitchen. "I need to use the restroom," he said, but instead of heading to the bathroom, he started rummaging through my drawers. Alarmed, I stood up. "Hey, what are you doing?" He turned, a sinister look in his eyes. "Just looking for something." I demanded he leave, but he just laughed, pulling a knife from one of the drawers. My heart raced as I backed away. I needed to get out, but he was between me and the door. In a moment of desperation, I threw my hot coffee at him. It hit his face, and he howled in pain, dropping the knife. I seized the moment, sprinting past him and out of my apartment, screaming for help. Neighbors poked their heads out, and seeing the panic in my eyes, one of them called the police. The man tried to flee, but the police caught him just a few blocks away. It turned out that he was actually wanted for a series of burglaries in the area. He'd been preying on people who were more likely to be alone during the holidays. That Thanksgiving night taught me a valuable lesson about the dangers of being too trusting. I was thankful for my quick thinking and the neighbors who came to my aid. It was a holiday that I would never forget, a reminder that not every stranger bearing a story of misfortune is what they seem. It was Thanksgiving night in rural Virginia, and I was driving back to my hometown of Abingdon after spending the day with friends in Bristol. The roads were mostly empty, with most people already settled in for their holiday dinners. I was looking forward to a quiet drive through the familiar countryside. As I drove along the winding roads, lined with barren trees and the occasional farmhouse, I noticed a car parked on the side of the road. Its hazard lights were blinking, but it was hard to see much else in the dim light. I slowed down as I approached, debating whether to stop and offer help. It was Thanksgiving after all, and I felt it would be wrong to just pass by. I pulled over and got out of my car, the cold air biting at my face. As I approached the vehicle, I saw that it was an old sedan, and the driver's side door was ajar. "Hello? Do you need help?" I called out, but there was no response. Peering inside, I saw that the car was empty. The keys were still in the ignition, and there was a map spread out on the passenger seat. It looked like someone had been in a hurry. Feeling a sense of unease, I stepped back and scanned the area. That's when I noticed a faint light coming from the woods nearby. It looked like a flashlight, moving slowly among the trees. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. I walked towards the light, my footsteps crunching on the frost-covered ground. As I got closer, I could hear voices, a man and a woman arguing heatedly. I hesitated, wondering if I should turn back, but then I heard a loud thud, followed by a cry of pain. I rushed forward, pushing through the underbrush until I came upon a clearing. There, I saw a man and a woman struggling on the ground. The man was trying to restrain the woman, who was fighting back fiercely. Without thinking, I shouted and ran towards them, trying to intervene. The man looked up, startled, and in that moment, the woman managed to break free. She ran towards me, her face bruised and tear-streaked. "Please, help me," she gasped. "He's trying to kill me." I was in shock, unsure of what to do. The man got up and started walking towards us, a menacing look in his eyes. I knew we had to get out of there. I grabbed the woman's hand and we ran back towards the road where my car was parked. We drove away as fast as we could, the woman sobbing in the passenger seat. She told me her name was Anna, and the man was her ex-boyfriend. He had been stalking her for months, and tonight he had tried to abduct her. I called the police as we drove, and they instructed us to meet them at the nearest station. Anna was taken to the hospital, and I gave my statement to the police. They later caught the man, who was indeed wanted for several charges, including stalking and assault. That Thanksgiving night, I was reminded of how quickly a situation can turn dangerous, and how important it is to be aware of our surroundings. I was just glad I was there to help Anna, and I shudder to think what might have happened if I hadn't stopped. From then on, I never underestimated the importance of trusting my instincts, especially on quiet country roads.